Bonjour, comment ça va? I am so proud of how hard you have worked this week with your French. I hope you have had lots of fun learning about France, about Paris, about Bastille Day and practicing your French as well, whether you've been at home or at school. It's been so lovely to see you this week, whether that's in school or whether we've been to your house to drop off your French present. It has been really nice to see you and see you smiling. So before we start cooking, I have another challenge for you. Firstly, I would like to know what the sea is called between England and France. Secondly, I would like to know, you might have to research this, how long it would take you to get a ferry from Dover in England to Calais in France. I would also like to know how long it would take me to get a plane from London Gatwick to Paris. And finally, what is the name of the ocean on the west coast of France? Now, I know you're probably feeling pretty tired from this week, but I thought I would set you one final French challenge. If you're able to cook it over the weekend, that's fantastic. If you are not, then I hope you enjoy watching these French dishes. We're going to make meringues and we are also going to make a frangipane tart. Now, that has got nuts in, so if you know anyone who's allergic to nuts who's going to be eating it, you can still make the pastry and then you can make a tarte au citron, which is a lemon tart. First, let's have a go at making some meringues. For the meringues, preheat your oven to 120 degrees. I know that seems quite cool, but it's because meringues cook for a very long time on a lower heat. For our meringues, we're going to need 3 large egg whites and 175 grams of sugar. I'm going to use caster sugar, but you can use granulated sugar. The first thing we need to do is separate the whites from the yolk. So you need to crack your egg, break it apart, and it's really important that your yolk doesn't go in there at all. When you have 2 hands ready, you can just pour the egg yolk between both of the shells and eventually all the egg white will have come out and you can put the egg yolk into a side cup. After you have separated your egg whites, you're going to whisk them up. You could use a food processor or you can use an electric hand whisk. So when it holds its structure and it's in its stiff peaks, we need to add the sugar in a tablespoon at a time until we add in the whole 175 grams. So we're going to add a tablespoon in and then whisk it just on a low level and then keep adding the rest of the sugar. When your sugar is all mixed in, it should be a nice silky consistency. You could now transfer your mixture into a piping bag so that you could pipe your meringue nests, your little meringue kisses, or a big one for a pavlova. I'm just going to use a spoon. Portion out your meringues. I've done quite big ones and I'm just going to make a little nest bit in the middle, but you can make them as big or as small as you would like. I'm going to cook these for an hour to an hour and a half or when they're completely crispy. After you've cooked your meringues for an hour or an hour and a half, whatever they need, leave them in the oven with the oven turned off for another half an hour. Leave your meringues on a baking tray to cool completely before you add your toppings. With your meringues, you can put cream on top, ice cream on top, lots of fruit. You can crumble them up and put them on top of things, and there are just so many options. Or you might have made it into one big like pavlova with lots of cream and fruit. There's lots of options and it's really good to make in the summer. Now let's have a go at our frangipane tart. So it's a bit like a Bakewell tart, that's sort of the flavour of it. The ingredients you'll need for the pastry, now this is sweet short crust pastry. You'll need 200 grams of plain flour, 100 grams of butter, 30 grams of icing sugar and 1 egg. You could substitute the flour for gluten-free flour, and you could make it vegan by substituting the butter for margarine, and you could use water instead of the egg to bring it all together. Measure out your flour and cut up the butter into cubes. Ready to make it into breadcrumbs. It is easier if the butter comes straight out of the fridge. So when we're making our breadcrumbs, we are using this part of our fingers, the cold part. After you have mixed your flour and butter together with breadcrumbs, you are going to add the icing sugar. Mix in the icing sugar with the rest of your ingredients. Then you can add your egg and start to bring your pastry together. You can do this with your hand, or you can mix it around with a spoon. So start to bring it together to one big ball. It is going to take a bit of work to get it all together and make sure everything's completely mixed in, but once you have, bring it into a ball shape, cover it in cling film, and it needs to go in the fridge for an hour. Whilst you're making your frangipane filling, take your pastry out of the fridge. For your frangipane filling, you will need 125 grams of butter at room temperature. You will need 125 grams of caster sugar, 2 eggs and 125 grams of ground almonds, and some raspberries or some raspberry jam. You'll need to measure 125 grams of butter, 125 grams of sugar, and cream it together. When your butter and sugar is creamed together and you've mixed it for a few minutes, add 1 egg at a time and mix it all together. When your eggs are all mixed in, add in your 125 grams of ground almonds and mix together until it's all mixed in. You can either make one big tart or some small tarts. Flour your surface and rolling pin and roll out your pastry. Roll out your pastry so it's as even as possible and about the thickness of a pound coin, and you can just keep rolling it to help you pick it up if you are doing it over a large tart case, and then you can pick it up and move it where you need to. Place your pastry over your tart case loosely, and then you want to just push it in so it gets to all the corners. So you want to use really light hands for this so that it doesn't break. When you're happy it's pushed in evenly the whole way around, you can just pull off your excess pastry. After you've lined your pastry tins, you can just put your fork into the bottom of them, and then we're just going to cook them for 5 minutes on 180 degrees with nothing in at all. When your pastry cases come out of the oven after 5 minutes, they would have shrunk a little bit, but that's okay because we're going to put the frangipane mixture in. Into each one I'm just going to squash a couple of raspberries and spread them out over the bottom. You're then going to spoon in your frangipane mixture until it goes to the top of your case. Put another couple of raspberries on top and they can go back into the oven. Measure out 100 grams of icing sugar and then gradually add a few drops of water at a time until you get your water icing nice and smooth. When your frangipane tarts are cool, take them out of their cases and you can drizzle the icing over the top. Thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you for all the pictures you've sent me so far of the crepes and of you eating your croissants. It's been so lovely to see. I know it's sad we couldn't be in France, but I hope you've had a lovely week. And most important is that you are safe and well. And it's lovely seeing you again.